Assassin's Creed Shadows is finally out, and it is important that it does well for Ubisoft because they're in a bit of trouble right now, with talks of buying out from Tencent and just the general distrust surrounding Ubisoft when it comes to its audience. One of gaming's biggest studios could be in serious trouble if this game does not do well. So let's get into why that might be. Now, the other day, Assassin's Creed Shadows came out, and the reviews are a bit of a mixed bag. Most critics are giving 7s and 8s, whereas the general public can't really decide whether they like it or not. But when it comes to Assassin's Creed, people expect the best. And in the last decade or so, I don't think people have been getting the best from Ubisoft, especially when it comes to Assassin's Creed. There's a sense of a loss of identity from Ubisoft, no innovation and no change for the better. And it feels like Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to be a defining game for Ubisoft in terms of what's going to happen in the future for them. Because after Star Wars Outlaws and Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, Ubisoft really need a big win. Because their stocks have fallen, there's talks of Tencent buying them out, or even more recently there's reports of Tencent joining forces with Ubisoft and buying a significant stake in the company. Bloomberg reports that Tencent and Ubisoft have now started considering an alternative plan, citing people familiar with their ongoing talks, which was the privatization of Ubisoft and Tencent buying them out. The idea currently being discussed is said to be a joint venture that would incorporate only some of Ubisoft's assets. Tencent would own a stake in this hypothetical spin-off, thereby boosting its share in Ubisoft, which currently sits at around 10%. No final decision on the matter has yet been made, with the discussions currently being at a stage where Tencent and Ubisoft's Guillemot family are evaluating which assets would be included in their hypothetical joint venture and what their overall valuation might be, as per the same source. Now, that piece of the article was specifically from GameRant, but when Tencent are talking about buying certain Ubisoft assets, they're specifically talking about potentially buying the Assassin's Creed franchise, and Ubisoft and Tencent would sort of conjoin to make future Assassin's Creed games. Now, there are plenty on the horizon. You have Assassin's Creed Jade, a Black Flag remake is being rumored, Assassin's Creed Invictus, which is the multiplayer game that they're supposedly going to make, Assassin's Creed Hex, Assassin's Creed Raid, there's a mobile game being made by Netflix, Assassin's Creed Nebula, potentially even more remakes, and Assassin's Creed Echoes. So if Tencent was to do this, they would be investing in quite a hefty franchise with loads of plans for the future, and maybe that's the kind of change Ubisoft needs. Maybe it just needs someone else to tell it what to do with its assets, because currently, with the Assassin's Creed franchise, and all Ubisoft games for that matter, there's no innovation, there's no change, and people are becoming very skeptical of Ubisoft and their games, to the point where people are thinking about boycotting Ubisoft games because they just don't trust them to make the games that they want to play. Now, from what I've seen of Assassin's Creed Shadows, I haven't actually played it myself yet. I plan on doing so in the next couple of days, but the general consensus is it's decent, but is that enough from Ubisoft? Is that enough for the Assassin's Creed franchise? And the answer is not really. Assassin's Creed is one of the biggest names in gaming. It has such a wide audience. It is arguably Ubisoft's best IP. And in recent years, it seems like they've wasted it and lost the essence of what makes a good Assassin's Creed game. Now, did this happen with the switch over to the RPG style of Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla? Or did this happen much earlier when the innovation became stagnant when it came to Assassin's Creed games, where every Assassin's Creed game felt like just a reskin? And the one time they did try to make a big change to how Assassin's Creed runs with its gameplay and systems with Assassin's Creed Unity, it had a completely botched launch. And for the longest time, people have been begging for an Assassin's Creed game to be set in feudal Japan. And Assassin's Creed Shadows finally provides that, but I think for a lot of people, it's just not good enough, especially when you compare it to something like Ghost of Tsushima, which arguably is the closest thing to Assassin's Creed in feudal Japan that we've had without it actually being Assassin's Creed. People have seriously high expectations for a game in the Assassin's Creed franchise that is set in feudal Japan. And I think Ubisoft were also adamant that they need to get this right, hence the multiple delays that the game had. Remember, this game was meant to release last year, but had multiple delays because they just didn't think the game was in the right state. Whether that was gameplay features, bugs, whatever it might have been, I'm not sure. But I think it's clear to see that Ubisoft are relying on Shadows doing well to get back on their feet. But if you were to put the game aside itself, there's too much controversy surrounding Shadows way before its release, to the point where it's attracting the wrong kind of crowd. Recently, Assassin's Creed Shadows got in a bit of hot water due to the ability to attack shrines within the game and destroy objects within those shrines. And the Prime Minister of Japan actually responded to this issue when questioned about it. He said, "I fear that allowing players to attack and destroy real-world locations in the game without permission could encourage similar behavior in real life. Shrine officials and local residents are also worried about this. Of course, freedom of expression must be respected, but acts that demean local culture should be avoided." How to address this legally is something we need to discuss with the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, the Ministry of Education, Culture, Sports, Science and Technology, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Defacing a shrine is out of the question. It is an insult to the nation itself. When the self-defense forces were deployed to Samarwa, Iraq, we ensured that they studied Islamic customs beforehand. Respecting the culture and religion of a country is fundamental, and we must make it clear that we will not simply accept acts that disregard them. Now, since then, Ubisoft has released a day one patch which makes it so that you cannot destroy objects within these shrines. And the game even gives you multiple warnings to do with these shrines when you approach them. For example, the game politely asks you not to climb on Torii gates. So these issues aren't even to do with gameplay. They aren't even to do really with the game itself. It's to do with the way Ubisoft has approached it culturally. Now, usually, Ubisoft are pretty good about respecting history and culture within their games. And I don't believe there's been an incident like this before when it comes to Assassin's Creed. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But Assassin's Creed games have always started with this message. Inspired by historical events and characters, this work of fiction was designed, developed, and produced by a multicultural team of various religious faiths and beliefs. At least that's what the message used to be. It has since been updated to reflect modern times and modern ideologies. The message now states, inspired by historical events and characters, this work of fiction was designed, developed, and produced by a multicultural team of various beliefs, sexual orientations, and gender identities. Yet, Ubisoft have somehow still found themselves in hot water with this cultural issue when it comes to its Japanese Assassin's Creed game. And I think that's due to a larger issue at Ubisoft. I think they're slightly out of touch. And I don't mean that in an offensive, horrific way. I mean that they just don't understand their audiences. I don't think they really have a true identity that is embedded in their games anymore. Ubisoft has lost its identity. The Assassin's Creed franchise has especially lost its identity. Ubisoft at the moment feel directionless. They feel like they're a bit lost, and that's resulting in games underperforming financially. However, it does appear that Assassin's Creed Shadows is doing fine for the moment. It was recently revealed that 2 million players are now playing Assassin's Creed Shadows, which does put it above more recent titles within the Assassin's Creed franchise, at least within its release weeks. Now, the sales numbers haven't come out for Assassin's Creed Shadows, which might be an entirely different story, but at least Assassin's Creed Shadows is doing better than more recent Assassin's Creed titles like Mirage and Valhalla. And Assassin's Creed Shadow hitting 2 million players 2 days after release does mean it has surpassed Origins and Odyssey's launches. But like I said, is that enough? Is Assassin's Creed Shadows doing enough to consider Ubisoft still to be one of gaming's top studios when it comes to the quality of their games? And in my humble opinion, no. Assassin's Creed Shadows is an Assassin's Creed game, but I say it's an Assassin's Creed game quite loosely because I'm not sure what an Assassin's Creed game is anymore. What's its identity? And I don't think I've known that for over a decade. But from what I've seen of reviews, what I've seen of gameplay, and forming my own opinion from watching other people's just raw gameplay and what I've played of recent Assassin's Creed games, it's fine. Might even be pretty good, but it's just not anything out of the ordinary when it comes to Ubisoft games in general. I don't believe it's doing enough to innovate. I don't believe it's doing enough to stand out from other games, especially when we've had such a big month with February. Monster Hunter Wilds, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, just to name a couple that really stood out. Assassin's Creed Shadows has come out and it just feels underwhelming. Ubisoft does need to change. How and in what way, I'm unsure, but something really needs to be shaken up at Ubisoft for them not to be in trouble. And it's evident that really no one is pushing the boundaries at Ubisoft. We are getting the same repetitive systems and open worlds in their games, and every game that they release in recent times just feels like a 6 or 7 out of 10. Now, there are talks of a Black Flag remake coming, although that is just a rumor. But if this does come out, I don't think it's going to be anything innovative. If anything, it will just hopefully, if they're smart, be a complete remake of Black Flag in terms of its gameplay, but graphically be better, systems run smoother, the game runs smoother. But when it comes to the combat and its actual gameplay features, I would like them to be fairly identical to the original Black Flag game, because at least this would probably do well financially for them. People love Black Flag. I love Black Flag. It's the last Assassin's Creed game that I can safely say I really enjoyed, and that had that Assassin's Creed identity. But for Ubisoft to really bounce back, to really bring themselves back into the forefront of the gaming industry, to be considered one of the best studios in gaming again, they need to do something groundbreaking. They need to do something innovative. They need to start taking risks, and they haven't been doing that in recent times. And Assassin's Creed Shadows, as good as it might be, it's doing nothing new. It's not taking risks. Ubisoft needs to take a risk with its next game, because if they have flops like Skull and Bones again, I think Ubisoft will be in serious trouble. But that's just my opinion on the Ubisoft situation and the situation surrounding Assassin's Creed Shadows. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. What do Ubisoft need to do to be considered one of the great gaming studios again, to gain the trust of gamers around the world once more? And also tell me what you think of Assassin's Creed Shadows if you've played it. I'd love to hear from you, so let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more content like this. I'll probably do another video on Assassin's Creed Shadows when I've actually played it, to form a proper opinion on just the game itself. So subscribe for that. Become a member today if you want to support me in another way. You get early access videos and live streams. And thank you so much for watching this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.